So this is Lab 3 in series Azure, Microsoft Azure 900, and in this we are going to configure network, and we are basically going to use Cloud Shell. And so let's proceed with this exercise. It is a bit longer than the two we have already done. So let's log in into the portal. So we have logged into the Microsoft Azure. Next, we are going to log in into the Cloud Shell. So here is Cloud Shell. I will take this screen to here, and we are going to use Bash. These steps are same as Lab 2. So if you have not seen Lab 2, please go, because after creating virtual machines, you are pretty familiar with these steps. And now I want to create a storage. Next, storage name is Cloud Shell and the file share is shell storage. Resource group is this and region would be Canada. We have created our resource is in deployment. Deployment is in progress, and next step is on the you have no storage mount. Yeah, we have done these steps up to fifth step is done. Next is after the Cloud Shell initialize, put you at the text prompt, exit the shell. So now we have to wait for a few seconds to just connect to the terminal. In this exercise, meanwhile it is done, I will read this. In this exercise, you will configure the access to the virtual machine you created earlier in this module. The Microsoft Learn sandbox should still be running. If this sandbox timed out, you will need to redo the previous exercise. So that is what I am mentioning. The previous exercise was to create a virtual machine. We have already done that. Right now, the VM you created and installed this web server nginx on isn't accessible from the internet. You will create a network security group that changes and allow inbound HTTPS on port 80. So the web server we have installed in the previous lab, we are going to access through this lab, and how we are going to do is by changing network settings, right? So let's begin. So first of all, it says run this command, and we'll try to run this command, and it should not be it should not connect to the virtual machines. Basically, we don't have any port open in the virtual machine. Okay, just a second. Run the following AGVM list command. Get your VM's IP address, stored the result as bash variable. So this command is getting the IP list from our virtual machine, and it is stored in a file. Next is run the following tcurl command to download home page. Okay, let's run this command. I thought we are trying to connect. So, but that was not the case. Now we are going to use curl command to download the home page. You can see as it is failed to connect. So the reason is because the inbound connection is not allowed in our virtual machine. And it also says the connect timeout argument specifies to allow up to 5 seconds for connection to occur. After 5 seconds, you will see an error message as we have seen. So next is as an optional step, try to access web server from a browser. So let me take this here and we will try to access it from web browser. Okay, first of all, what is the IP address of our machine? There is no IP address, so maybe our machine is not running. So I have to confirm, just a second. It says complete, right? We have created virtual machine, but there is no IP address. Okay. So this is the IP address. We are going to run this here and we are going to see that web page is not running. Web page is not accessible. It must show an error here. It should be similar to this. We'll see in a moment. Yes, exactly. Now we are going to configure the settings so that we can access this web server. So this first command is going to be your web server wasn't accessible. Yes, of course. To find out why, let's examine your current NSG rules. So NSG rules are network security group rules. These are used to configure our VMs. Basically, these are the security rules which helps to maintain our network and the VMs we have already installed on the Azure, right? So run the following command. We will run this command here. This is done. You will see the output as this. Yes, we can see the output. Every VM on Azure is associated with at least one network security group. So this is an important point. In this case, Azure created an NSG for you called. So this is our network security group, which is associated with our VM. Now we will run this command to see to list the rule associated with it. So these are all the rules associated with our network security group. As you can see here, we have our source group protocol TCP, name is default, direction is inbound. So these are all the rules. But if you can see, we don't have port 82 anywhere. So now we are going to configure a rule which is going to allow the port 22. So let's run this command. So this rule specify allow SSH on port 22 and priority is 1000. Priority is basically a list which gives the ability to the least what should be done first and what should be done next. Like one is the highest priority and the 1000 and the order below one is going to be the least priority. So that's how it works. So it says you see the default rule, default allow SSH. This rule allows inbound connection over port 22, which is SSH secure shell, is a protocol that is used only next to allow administrator to access the system remotely. The priority of this rule is 1000. Rule are processed in priority order, as I said, with lower number processed before higher numbers. By default, Linux VM NSG allows network access only on port 22. This enables administrator to access the system. You need to also allow inbound connection on port 80, which allow access over HTTP. So now we are going to create a rule which is going to allow the inbound access to port 80. So let's run this command. And as you can see in the command, we have given the priority 100, which is greater than the previous rule created by us, which was this rule in which we allowed port inbound connection on port 22. Now we have a connection on port 80 and the priority is 100, which is a greater priority than the port 22. Now this command is going to verify the rule list. So you see what is the difference. Here we only have port 22 allowed, and after creating this rule we have port 22 and port 80 both are allowed and the priority is according to the rule, which is 1000 for port 22 and 100 for port 80. We have done this, and now we are going to access our web server again. Yes, so as you can see, we can access our web server now. I want to run it inside the terminal as well with this command. So curl help us to connect to web server. It says connect. Oh, sorry, just a second. This is not the command. Yeah, curl connect timeout 5 HTTP IP address. So this is the command. Let me enter the IP address of the VM here. That is 13.77.107.28. Yes, we can access it. Here as well, after entering the IP address, it says the message, welcome to Azure, my name is this is VM. So we are successfully connected to our web server. So in this lab, we have created NSG rule list, which help us to open port 80 and port 22 We have set priorities to those ports, and now we can access our virtual machine inside that we have set up earlier. And that was lab 3 all about, to configure network access to allow access of our web server on any virtual machine we have created. So that's all for this lab. Thank you.